Douglas, the Russian Air Force is eating into aircraft lifespans.
Aircrafts.
I had to review the wording on that one a couple times. Let's see. As the ground war in Ukraine continues to grind ahead, the VKS, Russian Aerospace Forces, are experiencing falling availability rates with their existing fleet of combat aircraft. The culprit is a combination of high number of losses of fixed-wing aircraft combined with a drop in mission-capable rates due to the higher than normal number of flight hours being flown by those aircraft remaining. And one of the problems they're having is they shot down 2 of their own Su-35s, which apparently has been happening more than once during this war.
I think most of their losses have been themselves. I think they have shot themselves down a lot more than anything.
It goes on to reference the increased op tempo, need for increased maintenance, and it's being complicated by shortage of spare parts because of increasing demand and international sanctions. Number of bullet points here. I think the one I've focused on the most is the last one. By the summer of 2024, combat losses and imputed flight hour losses may put the VKS below 75% of its pre-war strength. Let's see. High flight hours being flown by older aircraft is equivalent to losing roughly 34 aircraft since the start of the invasion. They expect to lose 30 to 60 airframes a year from combat. And
that's the 2 squadrons, 2 small squadrons, essentially, that you're losing a year.
Russian defense minister projected the war in Ukraine will last at least until 2025. Consistent implementation of measures and activity plans will allow us to achieve the goals we set. Aircraft is fine.
Yeah, it's all good. Thanks, Doug. So this is a lesson, part of it. We have shot our own planes down in the past, but this specific lesson about flying, there you go. Flying high hours and running our stuff into the ground is exactly what we've learned for the last 20 years. But we had parts and depot. What would they call it with the? Because I think the F-16 had it and the A-10 had it too. Or they got to 8. I think it was 8,000 hours, and then they sent it to the depot to
the service life extension of SLEP.
Yeah,
service life extension program.
Yeah, so we learned this lesson ourselves because we were taking fighters that were not meant to do this, putting them, 10 to 15 hours at a time. Probably more than that. You're almost talking 20 hours a day in combat operations and making them fly and running out hours on them. And that's expensive. TBear, what do you think?
Well, I think it's called combat, and that's what happens. That's what happens, and that's why it's so hard to sustain that so long. And obviously you can, though. If you go back to Vietnam, different era, but we lost a lot of airplanes, and we flew a lot of hours on airplanes. We managed to keep up with that, but then as airplanes got more expensive, more complicated, and instead of having a buttload of them, we got a few of them. It gets harder and harder to do. A-10s, when I first started flying A-10s, if an airplane had 2,000 hours on it, it was an old airplane. And then I got out of the airplane for 4 years. And when I came back, 5,000, 6,000 hours was common. And I started flying them in 89. And so the airplanes were like 12 years old at that time, 11, 12 years old. And like I said, 2,000 hours was a high time airplane. And then 4 years later, they're 5,000 and 6,000 hour airplanes. So you can see what it does to you. And then, of course, all that eats off total service life. And that's part of the ADAIR program. Remember, we all had jobs because we didn't want to burn those hours off.
Yeah, past tense.
Thanks, TBear. It's not a sore subject.
Yeah, it's not a sore subject. Views are our own. I don't represent the DOD or.
But it was all because we were trying to save the hours on the F-22s. So it's called combat, and you just have to. There ain't no way to fix it except spend money on it.
Yeah, and they don't have it. They're under sanctions, so it's a much different picture than Uncle Sam's money printer goes burr. that we can just print the money and hand a check over to whichever contractor we'd like.
Yeah, but they don't have any U.S. stuff. They're making their own parts. Right.
Well, that's what the article talked about, was some of the sanctions were preventing them from being able to continue to make parts.
Microchips.
Yeah.
That's where their problem is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I looked at that article. I'm like, oh, I've seen this before. Different country, but I've seen this before.
Gonky, you've seen it in the Navy. I mean,
oh, big time.
They burned so many hours on the Hornet and the Super Hornet.
Yeah.
Brand new Super Hornets.
Yep. Yeah. I remember they're like, hey, you guys are using too many hours. Cause like, they're every airplane is on a like a lifespan maintenance plan. And it's like, if it starts hitting these hour milestones early, it's like, wait a minute, it's not supposed to be here for another 2 years. What's going on? And then like TBear said, well, you're using it in combat. So I don't know what to tell you,
That happened with the center barrel.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
The Hornet center barrel. You had jets that were, they're 2G limited. Oh, great. I can go out and fly 4G.
4G limited jets in the RAG. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Viper, the Viper was something we were always talking about. Would one day we see the Viper stick around long enough that it would not be a 9G aircraft anymore, because we just extended the life. That's why they put new wings on the Hog. And then how many hours did the Hog have? So you talked about 2,000 and 4,000, TBear. What did it have after Afghanistan? Like, what kind of hours were you seeing there? You remember?
Man, I can't remember, but I think they were in the 6,000-7,000 hour.
Is that what it was designed for? 6,000 hour?
No, I think it was a 8. I can't remember. Six does kind of stick out in my mind. Yeah. But you know what? The Navy doesn't pull G's, right? You could 4G airplane.
When they land. Right? When they land, it's all the G forces on the land.
We couldn't do the G warm, man. We couldn't do the G warm, so we weren't legal to do anything.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Any reattacks on that one before we move on? Sweet.